Hey everybody, Prepper Nurse 1 here. So I wanted to talk about this crackdown. National Guard has now been sent into Portland. Portland's been a hotbed for lawlessness for quite a while now. You have a lot of issues in Oregon. I think Oregon is the state, correct me if I'm wrong, but Oregon is the state that decriminalized drugs. So you basically can do drugs whenever you want, if I'm not mistaken. I think there was one of those states out there that did it, and I do believe it was Oregon. So if I'm wrong on that, please correct me in the comments. But I do believe they're the ones that did that. So you have the National Guard has just been brought in to try to regain control of the area and whatever is going on there. And so now, you have all these protesters out there and stuff like that. But here's the problem with that, okay? A lot of these protesters, folks, are being bussed in. A lot of these protests all over the country, they're being bussed in. They had one lady, they showed her, she'd been, she's a professional protester. And she's been to all these different protests and doing her protest thing. So she's getting paid to protest. I mean, it's just, you can't make this stuff up, And so you have in the media and politicians have demonized ICE law enforcement, right? The reason that they started wearing masks, and of course that's not talked about realistically, the reason that they started wearing masks to hide their identity is because these lunatics on the left, some of them, were doxing them, finding out where they lived, posting where they lived, and their families were being harassed. They were being harassed at home when they weren't working. That's not how it should be. So, yeah, I don't blame them for wearing the mask. And, of course, they're being compared to the Gestapo and all this type of stuff. They're enforcing the laws that we have on the books. That's what they're doing, okay? And so, like I said, now the National Guard has been called out. A bunch of people have been arrested already. But unfortunately, places like Portland, places like New York, or I should say Oregon, let's call it Oregon, places like New York and Seattle and California, they have the revolving door justice system. These people get arrested, they get booked in, they get released immediately back out, and they go right back to doing what they were doing. And they have to face the consequences at a later date. And a lot of times, because of liberal judges and liberal prosecutors, they're getting a slap on the wrist. And so, I mean, there is absolutely a double standard out there, has been a double standard for quite a while, and, they're getting away with a lot of stuff. Well, there's a lot more now being done, and these people are being deported, and they should be deported. If if you're not here legally, folks, you broke the law. I love when they say, well, they're peaceful, they're not committing any crimes. Yeah, they already did commit a crime by coming into the country illegally. So, yeah, right off the bat, they committed a crime. And if you want to come to this country, which is, the greatest country in the world, and you want to live here, I don't have a problem with it if you do it the right way. So, I mean, how are we supposed to have pity for people that did something illegally? And it was absolutely, open door policy by the last administration. What they think, they estimate 8.5 million people and probably 3 million gotaways. I mean, that's insane. That's an insane number of people that came in the country. And who's hiring them, right? Well, big business is hiring them. I mean, and there's another problem. Because I've always said, who benefits? Big business benefits. Always said it. Because they're going to, undermine other people. They're going to get these guys to work cheaper, longer hours. They won't care about bathroom breaks or lunch breaks and all that type of stuff because they don't want to make any waves because they don't want to be deported. So, it's just crazy. It's just absolutely crazy. And, so there's a crackdown now. National Guard, and they're going to be, I don't know if they haven't done it already, I think they're going to be doing it also in Chicago, Illinois. which is another just, you know, an infested city with crime. And I'm going to tell you what, if you asked the average everyday people in Chicago, if you ask the everyday people that are in Portland, regardless if they're left or right, they're probably sick of the crime. They're probably like, you know, they won't openly, you know, the left, of course, can't openly say, oh, I'm glad they're here. You know, I'm glad they're stopping the crime. But, you know, that's what's happening. And so people, like I said, people have had enough. And you get to a breaking point, and then something has to be done. And if the local governments are not doing it, then the federal government does. It has to. You know, it's not like they're going to be there forever. You know, they're going to crack down, come in, get the arrests, get the people off the streets that they need to get off of, get rid of the illegals that are there in these sanctuary cities. You know, and this is what kills me. A lot of these protesters, they're protesting to get the government to let these criminals that have a criminal record, because that's basically who they wanted to arrest first. Anybody with a criminal record and stuff like that. So rapists and murderers and drug dealers and kidnappers and, you know, drug smugglers and human trafficking, all those type of people. That's what they're protesting for, folks. Realistically, that's what they're protesting for. They want you to let these scumbags back out on our streets, and it blows me away. But again, the issue is not all of these protesters are local protesters. A lot of these protesters are paid protesters that are being shipped in from other places. They come in on buses, and then they come there and they wreak havoc and they cause all kinds of problems. And that's what they do, you know, and that's what they're getting paid to do. So, you know, it's not just this righteous indignation that people have. No, they're getting paid. So, yeah, I'll protest and I'll throw Molotov cocktails and spit on the police and do all that stuff. That's what they do, you know. Until they are held accountable for their actions, until they are arrested, put in jail with no bail, this kind of crap will not stop. It will not stop. And I'm sorry, but, you know, whatever job anybody has, you might not like their job, but if they go home to their families, you know, having their families be harassed should not be the way that things go. That's not the way things should be done. So, just my thoughts on this. Love to hear your feedback. What do you think? And, I mean, the insanity's got to stop at some point. That's all I got to say. It's got to stop at some point. And President Trump is doing something about it. And I applaud that. I will talk to you all later. I hope you all have a great day. Prepper Nurse 1, out for now.